Hello! Wow, it's dark today, isn't it? But that's useful, because I'm going to be doing something a little bit different today, and working on building a map for someone else's minigame, which is called Murder in the Dark. Anyway, I had a lot of fun playing it the other night, and I really love the concept the game uses. So I thought I'd help the author out by building an environment for players like yourself to have fun in, and hopefully it'll look pretty cool while you're running around in the game as well. So I'm going to go ahead and change the time of day here, and then we'll be able to see what we're doing and we can get into the building. So, like I said, the game is called Murder in the Dark, and it's by a guy called Djimusic. I'll link to his video about the game in the description below. So go ahead and check that out after this video if you haven't seen it already, and I'll link to that again at the end. Basically, you get a group of players together in a big space, and one of them is the murderer, one's the detective, and the rest are a group of players running around trying not to get killed. And the players and the detective have to try and work out who the murderer is, and the murderer has to kill somebody. So at the end of each round, when somebody's died, the detective gets to guess who the murderer is, and if they manage to get the right person, then the players and the detective win, and if not, and the murderer gets all the way to the end, then the murderer wins. The specification for this map is that it needs to be about a 100 by 100 block size, which you can see I marked out in the square earlier. It also needs to be impossible for players to die from natural causes, so fall damage is going to be off inside the map. I need to make sure that people can't drown when they're running around, and also that they can't get out of the map and fall into the void and take damage that way. So I've had a couple of ideas for what I want to build in this space, and I've settled on putting something together I've wanted to build for a while actually, which is inspired by the Chichen Itza, which is a site in Mexico, and I've got some really cool reference images, so I'll link those in the description below. I'm going to grab some blocks now and start building one of the sides of the main structure, and then I'll bring you back and we'll talk about how I'm going to approach this build. Okay, we're back, and here is the start of the first side, actually just the corner of the main structure. And it's going to be a step pyramid, because it goes up like this, which is inspired by the top 5 tiers of the El Castillo step pyramid, which is in the Chichen Itza site, which I mentioned earlier. And I've used my block level design concept to help me think about how players will interact with this physical space in the game and come up with a scale that works, so they can run around this space and use it in different ways in the game. And if you're interested in seeing more about what I mean by block level design, then I'll link my video on that in the description below, so you can check that out. I'm going to use World Edit now to speed up this build, as I don't have a huge amount of time to get it finished. So I'll show you how I've been using that, and then we'll work on the top of the pyramid, which will be here, before moving on to the next structure. So I'm going to select the top corner here of the space which I want to copy, which is here. So I'll left click that block there, and then the bottom right hand corner is going to be this bit down here, this block. So I've just put orange wool in here to just kind of help indicate the space we're selecting. So it's all of that space in there, stretches out to the right, across and then down, and then all the way back around this way. So it's all the stone, it's the air, the wool, everything. And then we want to copy it around anti-clockwise this direction into this space, do that another 2 times, and we'll create the pyramid structure. And I think the easiest point to copy it around will be this block here. So what I want to do is stand on this block, because I've got the space selected, and issue the copy command, which puts this in the clipboard. So we've now got that in the clipboard relative to where I was standing on that block. And that block will be here on this side. So if I stand on here, and then I rotate this structure anti-clockwise, so we need to go / rotate -90, and then I do paste, you'll notice this block beneath me change colour when I hit paste, and the rest of the structure will appear. So let's do that now. There we go. Perfect. Now let's do that again for the other two sides. So again, relative to this space, stand on here, rotate it, and we don't need to be facing a particular direction. It's relative to where we are physically located in the game rather than which way we're looking. So I've rotated it, and now we'll paste it, and there's the next side, and then we'll do the same thing again. So we rotate, we need to stand on this block here, and then we paste, and that's it sorted. And now the last thing I want to do to really get a handle on this structure is remove the orange wool. So we'll select a new space now. So that was the, I guess, the bottom left corner there. We're going to have the top right corner way over here, which needs to be, let's do it out of orange wool, and let's go up to there. That's enough of a height. We'll right click that to select that, and then we're going to replace everything that's an orange wool. So it'll be 35. So / replace 35(1), which is orange wool, with air, which is 0. Now if I hit that now, it removes all that orange wool. Right, so here is the pyramid now, back inside the square. And I suppose it's worth me mentioning at this point that because I'm using World Edit on a 1.7.5 server, as you can see, I won't be adding in some of the detail around the pyramid until near the end of the build, because I want to use the new andesite and diorite blocks, and the purpose of the wool for now is a placeholder to kind of represent a little bit what that looked like. Although the definition between them won't be so harsh, and I will use things like gravel blocks, cracked stone brick and mossy to break up the look between the cap on each level and then the wall itself of the step. But for now, let's start work on the entrance to the pyramid, which sits on the top here. You can see I've brought the stairs up to level with this and popped sandstone in on the top. And one of the things I've noticed in the reference images is that this structure kind of flares out at the base, so I want to use stairs to represent that and get these to the edge like this, have them sort of curve around the side of the structure, and then have the walls of the structure come about I think 5-6 blocks, something like that. So, ooh, that was weird, it just disappeared. 3, 4, 5, 6, must some kind of server lag or something. So the height of the physical structure on the top will be about there. And then on one side, which we'll determine is the main entrance, we'll have a doorway in, and then you'll be able to run down into the base of the pyramid, and we'll punch a hole through here, and there'll be stairs then into the base, and then treasure rooms and things like that in there for people to explore and run around and, you know, have fun with the environment. Here's the next structure I've been working on, which is these distinctive looking columns. And in the reference images I've got, they stretch quite far in an L shape, bounded on the inside by grass and then on the outside by a dense forest. And I'll probably be using a mixture of large kind of jungle trees and then other tree types to create a feeling of a very thick, tall forest around the main buildings. And something I really like about this structure is that in-game, when players are kind of running around, you'll get a feeling, hopefully, of sort of disorientation as you sprint between the different columns, turning this way and that, trying to maybe lose your pursuer or, you know, find somebody to kill if you're the murderer. It's a couple of days later now, and I've just had a chance to do a mock-up of the observatory and start to get a feel for how players will move around this space. Because that's the important thing here. The goal here is twofold. It's to create an interesting space and environment with lots of different areas for players to use, as well as create something which is cool to look at as you're running around in the game. So this is where I've got to with the building so far. It's actually my second attempt. The original one I built was sort of 8 to 10 blocks higher, kind of up here, but I want this structure to be lower than the main step pyramid structure, so I've dropped this down a couple of blocks on each of the stairways and brought the levels down a little bit and shrunk the observatory, and I've raised the step pyramid up one complete level. So you can see we did have 5 tiers originally. The pyramid was this height here, and now I've put in another step on what was the old base of the pyramid and extended it down. So we've moved it up and chucked another step in at the bottom. And I think this will work out really nicely because I wanted to have 3 levels on the inside of the pyramid, and now it will break up nice and easily, so each pair of steps will be 1 level on the inside and there'll be a uniform height. And then the centre will have a basement with a treasure room or something like that. Right, so I've moved things on a lot more, and we've got a few of the designs I've been working on over here. But I've just finished building up all the drafts of each of these, and I've put them into the map to see how they look. So here is the result so far. Now as you can see, it's still a little bit rough around the edges. We've got the orange wool of my guidelines and reference points still in, and we've got to take that out. But the overall look and feel is starting to take shape now, and I'm pretty pleased with where it's heading. What I thought I'd do now is quickly pick out the new highlights for you. I'll show you a couple of the new structures. Then I'm going to put this onto a snapshot server, I'll add in the detail, and then we'll look at the final result together. So we've got 2 new small platforms here and here. These are just copies of each other. And this is inspired by the platform of the eagles and the jaguars from the real-life Chichen Itza site. We've got this temple, which is inspired by the Temple of the Jaguars. It's slightly smaller than perhaps I would have ideally liked. The sort of to scale version is that one over there, but I had to shrink it a little bit on the height to keep it lower than the step pyramid. And something I want to feature in this one is a temple inside a temple. A lot of ancient civilizations, particularly the Mayans and the Aztecs, would build a temple or a pyramid or a structure and then decide later on that they needed another one which is larger, so they would build simply a new temple around it. Okay, so it's been about a week since I last had a chance to record and work on the map, and today I've started adding in some of the detailing. And I thought it might be quite a good idea to show you the processes I use to build up different layers of detail at different levels to make things feel more like a natural environment for players when they're running around the map. It's also worth mentioning at this point that I'm now working directly on the live development version of DJ's Murder in the Dark game on a snapshot server. So we've got 14W27B is the snapshot we're using right now. So he's gone ahead and imported this map into his live world, and then used MC Edit to set the biome type to jungle right across this whole area. So we've got these really nice vivid green colours in the grass and in the trees that I really wanted. And then the next step was to actually grow these trees. And the way that was done quickly was by using one of the new game rule commands that we have access to in the 1.8 snapshots. So if we do /game and then press tab, it'll auto-complete. So game rule there, and then it's random tick speed we want, so tab again, random tick speed. And we're going to set it to a high value, like 1000, and that changes the speed at which, or how often, a random tick occurs in game. And that governs stuff like sapling growth, or wheat, or crops, or vines, or things like that growing. And you can see that trees grow really, really quickly. And getting a little bit of lag and jitteriness, I think, possibly from the fact that it's got a high random tick speed right now. It also governs stuff like leaf decay. So when I was going around building these trees and placing them in, I'd occasionally decide, hey, maybe I don't want this jungle sapling, this jungle tree here. So we just go ahead and knock out the wood, and the leaves will disappear really, really quickly. So that's really, really handy. Let's now go and look at the pyramid, and I'll show you some of the detailing in there. Right then, here we are outside the main entrance of the pyramid, on the top of the pyramid. Let's head down into the 3rd level here at the top, and you can see the first level of detail I added in with help from Jamie, Grandmaster and Madalgo. Massive thanks to those 3 who helped me to add in the detail on these walls. So we went for sort of a blend of a random kind of texture with these blocks and a little bit of a pattern in there as well, doing things like putting cracked stone brick next to cobble where we could, and then andesite next to cracked stone brick and stone, and mixing in gravel and things like that as well. And I'm pretty pleased with how it's turned out. There's a good level of detail in the walls. Hopefully you can see that from a distance, but it's not too confusing, I think, either. I also worked on the floor here, adding in gravel amongst the stone. And as with most of this build, the gravel here serves a dual purpose. So it provides, both an interesting look and feel for the players, that is supposed to represent the age of the pyramid here, and it's sort of breaking down over time. But it also provides audio feedback for players running around. So if I just run around here a second, you can hear your footsteps, but importantly, when you're in the game, if there's somebody near you, you'll be able to hear their footsteps as well, and that's really, really important. Let's go down to the second level now, the middle level. And here, when I was researching the build, I found a lot of images of where the Mayans had used a lot of circular designs in both their imagery, their jewellery, art, and then occasionally buildings. And I thought it'd be quite a nice idea, because they also did things like sort of worshipping the sun and stuff, to add in something that represented that. So I had this kind of concept, and Grandmaster helped again with this, and Jamie, but Grand particularly came up with this sort of circular concept with then this one here is the moon. So you've got the kind of crescent moon here against the starry night sky, these blocks of coal. We also tried obsidian and black stained clay, but I think this one works better because you've got these sort of hints of almost like a starry sky running through it with the textures on the block. So that's pretty cool. Around here we've got the moon kind of rising up in the sky. Whoops, let's put that one back. So yeah, the moon rising up in the sky and the sun kind of setting, and then you've got the starry night sky again. Around to this side we've got the sun here, obviously, and then at the back we've got kind of the full moon here. The other thing to mention on this level, and hopefully you can see well enough, it is quite dark, but this is going to be the lighting in game. I wanted this sort of low level lighting feel where it's quite dark. The other thing to mention, is that here we've got the representation of an internal wall, and I think I mentioned it earlier with the temples that a lot of cultures, particularly the Mayans, would build a building and then decide, hey, that building's too small now for our needs, so we'll build another building around it. So you've kind of got the suggestion of this pyramid inside a pyramid. And if we go down to the basement, you can see we continued that concept again down here. So we've got the internal wall here, pyramid inside a pyramid. And I think that works out pretty well, so I'm really pleased with kind of how that's all turned out. So here we are at the columns again. And you can see since the last time I showed them to you, I changed my idea of how to add in the detail. Originally I was talking about using things like, mossy cobblestone and then mossy stone bricks, cracked stone bricks, different types of blocks to provide the detail. But when I went back to the reference images to look at them when I started that process, I discovered that actually they were a lot more uniform than I thought they first were. And that each of these pillars or columns, and we've got this sort of 1x4 structure in game here, but they were all really, really similar in their shape, size, colour, and the look and feel of them. And I wanted to represent that somehow by using the same block type. So I picked cobble, and then broke up that by using things like upside down. It's a right way upstairs here, and then sort of a slab on top. But I've also used upside down stairs in different places. I've shortened some of the columns, so we've taken them down to this kind of level as if they've just completely disintegrated. And I think it's worked out pretty well, because when you run through here, you get this uniform look and feel. You could, maybe kind of get lost in this environment. You lose your orientation a little bit, but you can see the detail as you're running around. So you catch in the corner of your eye different bits of the pillars having fallen out, and I'm pleased with how that looks now. The next thing for us to look at is perhaps the jungle floor over here. So after I'd built the trees and grown all of these, Djimusic, who I mentioned earlier is the creator of this concept, and his mate Flycrusher helped me to put in the grass on the jungle floor. So they went round this entire environment using bone meal, and then ran a clock attached to a command block to remove all the red and yellow flowers that would spawn. I went through afterwards, added in a bit more detail with some ferns, the large ferns and double tall grass, and I'm really pleased with how this has turned out. So you get this sort of natural environment. We took out all the leaves at this sort of head height level as well, so that you're not going to bump into anything, but you still occasionally kind of get your view a little bit obscured by these, double high grasses, and I think that's a pretty cool, thing. They also helped me with the wall over here, so I went for a repeating pattern, just smooth sandstone, chiseled sandstone, and then chiseled on the top, and we ran that all the way around the outside of the environment, so players can't get out of the map, obviously. That's really, really important, but it also provides just a very occasionally spaces for people to dive into maybe and hide like this. One of the things I was really keen with this whole concept and map is that players should be able to run in and out of any space they're in, almost anywhere in the map. And while we've created a couple of spots like this where you can sort of run in and hide, and again in the the treasure room in the pyramid, most of the points on the map, anywhere you're standing, let's say here, you can run in a range of different directions. You can go this way or this way or this way or this way, and that's the case. Even on these platforms here, you could run in 4 different directions. You could even jump off the side if you wanted. You've got a choice of different environments to run into. So you could head into the jungle, you could head over to the temple, you could go down into the tunnels, you could go over to the observatory or back into the pyramid. And you can choose how you move around the environment, because that's the most important thing in this game. That's what the player is controlling, their space in the environment. Let's look at the platforms and the temples in a little bit more detail now. So we've got on the top here this little kind of sun motif again. We've got the sun sort of represented by this sort of circle, sort of square thing in the centre, and then the rays shooting out around the side, which I'm pretty pleased with the look of. I think this platform is a pretty good representation actually of what it looks like in real life as well. And again, I've just added in detailing using different block types to add some texture to this, and then coarse dirt, pathways around the outside, and then grass and ferns and things as well. Around the back of each of the platforms, as there's another entrance over there to the tunnels, you can get down into the tunnels here. So we've just taken the look of this environment and I spread it down into the tunnels, just blending the two together. So we've got some dirt on the surface, we've got some grass below the surface, and then to stop the grass spreading down, I've got a lot of coarse dirt around this, and then we've got some dirt blocks here next to coarse dirt to break up that look. And it continues, sort of through the tunnels, which I showed you earlier. Let's hop back out and take a look at the temple. So this is the greyer of the two temples. The other one uses more kind of beige colours. And on the inside, we've got a temple inside a temple. This is the kind of look I was going for, and I think it's turned out pretty well. Got fairly low level lighting, just 4 torches inside this build, 2 on the front and then 2 on the back again, so that it's quite dark in here. I've tried to capture some of the outside, the greys of the outside wall, and bring that through to the inside to blend the look and feel with the more beige colours of the sandstone and sand. We've got some stairs in here as well, breaking up the floor. And then these 2 little sort of statuettes, there's a couple of statues and stuff and images I've seen that look like they're little jaguars or other little sort of idols, and I thought this represented those quite well, so that's what I've gone for there. Let's head over to the other temple. This platform is just a copy of the other one we looked at. This is the beiger of the 2 temples, I guess, this kind of colour, and then hints of grey running through it. On the inside we've got this little statuette, and then you can sort of run up and down in here. This is quite nice. I like the way this is played out. You've got quite a confusing but usable space. You can jump over this ledge here. You've got sort of this mini sort of altar thing here, or fonts that maybe had water in it one day. You can run up and down the different levels. You can even look out into the sort of atrium area here, run around the back of the temple on the sides, and then you've got the grass of the natural environment has kind of taken over the building and it's growing into the temple. So here we are over at the observatory, and as we move around this environment and I show you some of the detail, I want to talk a little bit more about both the form and the function of this particular space, because I've had that in my mind when I've been building the entire map this whole time, so that when players move around this space, what does it look like? Does it look nice? That's the form. Does it have good form? Does it make sense? Does it blend the building with the outside environment? Does it look broken up and natural, with the grass and ferns and different kind of blocks underfoot? And, hopefully it does. I think it's worked out really nicely. We've got good levels of detail, and we have good form on the building. And the function is, what it does. What purpose does it serve? I want this environment to be free-flowing for players so that they can move around it easily, diving into an entrance here, running around the inside, moving into the base of the observatory and then up to the top through the stairwell here. It serves a function because they're moving from one space to another fairly easily. You could run out onto the side again here or continue up to the top. And then you reach the top here and you can dive out the side here. And this is another particularly good example. In the real world environment, the observatory has actually collapsed out into the area around it. So the wall has deteriorated so much that it's turned to sand here, and the weight of the wall is just fallen out, and there's cobblestone and sandstone and stuff everywhere. And that's the form of it. Does it look nice? Does it kind of make sense? And the function is, you can run up it and back down it. So you can move from one space or environment into the other. And I'm pleased, particularly with this structure, how that has worked out. It could have been quite difficult to move around because you move from different, very large open spaces into quite enclosed ones, down and upstairs, in and out of columns. It could have been a difficult environment to run around, but I think that the way I've designed it and the spaces I've given players, they don't face those issues, and that is really, really important. Perhaps the final thing, actually, I want to show you, the other detailed thing, is this little kind of outcrop with, representation of, what was once a building but is now ruins and has just disintegrated so much you can't really tell kind of what it was. And then this one random birch tree, which makes me smile a bit. It's quite funny. The one of the images I saw had this really white, very distinctive tree which just didn't blend in at all with the jungle trees around it. And you've got these really vivid greens and then this sort of dark green colour, and I thought it'd be quite cool to include that on the map. So that's the reason that's there. So here we are with the finished map at night. And I hope as I fly around the environment, even from this level, you'll be able to see how much detail there is crammed into this space. And that when you look at the different structures or areas or environments in the map, so if you take a look at the observatory or the pyramid or one of the temples, the look and feel of each of them is really unique to that area. So the percentage of the different blocks or the concentration of, say sandstone or stone bricks or cobble or even diorite on the pyramid itself is different in each area. So you have both the shape of the building but also the blocks in the building, the types of blocks that indicate where you are in the map. And I think that's really important feedback to provide to players. You've also kind of got that look and feel in the jungle. So if you go in there, you've got this really distinctive, vivid green kind of colour. If you're running around the pathways, you've got the sandstone with the dirt around the edges. If you're in the tunnels underneath the map even, it's that brown, dark kind of feel. And then one environment blends into the other as you come up to the surface, or you move into, say, the basement of the pyramid and come out into the treasure room. And I think that's really, really important, because one of the things I've tried to design in from the start is that this map has both form and function, to create that really immersive environment for players when they're actually, in the game. And I think it's worked out okay. I've played a couple of games on it now with a bunch of players. It's definitely one of the larger maps, so I'd recommend using a larger number of players. But it works with smaller numbers too. But from sort of playing those games and running around the environment and seeing the visual and audio clues with the lighting around entrances to, say, the tunnels or into the temple, or the stairway up the side of the pyramid, or the low-level lighting by the low-level entrances. It really, really works. And I've watched a couple of games as well with players responding to those clues. So I saw a few games where a guy was running around in the tunnels underneath, and there was somebody on the surface up here who could hear them, and then ran over to the tunnel entrance and chased them around the tunnels. And similarly, somebody in the tunnels heard someone above and then sort of stopped moving. It was really, really interesting watching players respond to those visual clues. So I hope you'll really enjoy playing this map in DJ's Murder in the Dark game. Please go ahead and check out his channel and his videos afterwards. I hope you've enjoyed watching this process of me building the map. Thank you for watching, and until next time, goodbye!